How many times am I going to do that every class, okay? All right, so balance is so bizarre. So balance sheet. Here's your accounting equation. So your accounting equation, assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity, is a balance sheet. Those are all of the accounts that comprise the balance sheet. Okay? Where does your income statement, your net income number, close out into? Right. Huh? Yes, it just goes into it. If you have a net income, then your retained earnings will go up. If you have a net loss, your retained earnings will go down. So let's just think about this logically. I want to make sure this is clear to everybody. So you have a trial balance. A trial balance, the debits and the credits have to be the same, right? They have to be equal, okay? So included in the trial balance, you have all of your accounts, every one of them, assets, liabilities, equity, revenue, expenses. So in order to balance, you have to have all of your accounts, right, listed in order for your debits to equal your credits. So on a balance sheet has to balance. It's taking all the trial balance information. It needs to be equal. So if you have an income statement, that's taking part of the stuff from the trial balance and putting it on one statement. That doesn't have to balance. That just has to be a net income or net loss, right? But when you go through the balance sheet, you have to incorporate every single account that you had on your trial balance. Otherwise, you're not going to balance, right? So here, on our balance sheet, we have assets, we have liabilities, and we have equity. But we need to incorporate those revenues and those expenses in order to balance. So just trying to make this make sense to everybody. That goes into retained earnings. That's the net income number going into retained earnings, is the way of incorporating all of the rest of the accounts on the trial balance. Does that make sense? Okay? Because I'm just trying to think back to like when I was doing accounting for the first time. These are like little things that would throw me off. So I'm just trying to clarify all of that for you guys. Okay? So again, your trial balance, your balance sheet's going to incorporate all of that information from your trial balance. So it only has, that you can see in detail, assets, liabilities, and equity, but the retained earnings incorporates all that rest of that stuff into it. Okay? And then there's another piece we're going to learn about. It's not on here right now. Well, dividends come out of retained earnings. That's a very important point. But another really important thing we're going to learn about later is something called comprehensive income, other comprehensive income. So you can see that also in here. You may want to note, you can also have something called other comprehensive income, which may incorporate some of the things that look like they belong on the income statement, but they bypass the income statement. So you haven't learned about that yet, but you might want to note you can have other comprehensive income or accumulated other comprehensive income in here. Question? Yes?
I'm confused. Why isn't a cash on the credit side?
Okay, that's a really good question. This is not debit versus credit. This is just a total. So this is 21,000. Now 300 minus 20 gives you 280. So what they're doing is here, they're just subtotaling things. I'm really glad you asked that. Okay, because I want that to make sure that's clear. There's no this is not debit and credit, and I can see absolutely why you'd think that. This is a way of presenting a balance sheet when you have things. So accounts receivable less the allowance for uncollectible gives you your net accounts receivable balance. So a lot of balance sheets will be presented this way. So another question that may come up for you guys is, well, you may see you may see balance sheets that don't do it like that. There's not like a, there is a standard, there's like a somewhat standard format, but people do things differently. You're going to see as we go through. I'm not going to be like a stickler for you have to do it exactly this way, otherwise it's wrong. Some people show things just net of tax. Some people will show this minus the tax effect and then show the balance. It just depends upon, they could just as easily have said accounts receivable, comma, net, 280. See what I mean? It just depends upon how they choose to present it. Okay? So, but that's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. All right, so we have the income statement. We have the balance sheet. Can anyone think of another important statement that we used?